So this is Barre Fitness. We're going to be doing ballet-inspired moves, starting with the lower body, which also helps to warm us up. And then we'll move into upper body, which you can use your arms, or you can grab small dumbbells, but you don't need the dumbbells. Yeah, exactly that. Hello, hello. And then, and then we're going to go into some ab work at the end. It's roughly 45 minutes. Sometimes it takes 50 minutes. I'll try to end on time in case you guys have somewhere to be at 1 o'clock. The setup is a chair and then a yoga mat, if you can see behind me. And then take water breaks whenever you need. I don't really take formal breaks, but doesn't mean you can't. And then I have music on really quietly in the background just for me to sort of establish a rhythm of movement, but I don't want rhythm to ever be your main concern. Please play any music you'd like to listen to. I really want my voice to be heard versus music and speed or any sort of thing to be a factor. Technique is more important. So feel free to keep the movements slower if that helps you with feeling the muscles. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So you always have the option to hold on to the chair for balance. That's why it's there. If you don't have it, you're just really gonna have to work on your balance, but we're never gonna be yanking on the chair for safety reasons, because I'm pretty sure your chair, like mine, is not bolted to the floor. So it's not gonna help you if you start to fall and you're holding onto the chair. It's just, again, there for you to hold on to balance. So we're gonna do our side bend stretch to start with. I have my feet in first position, heels together, toes apart. I'm actually gonna do something different than what I normally do. I'm actually gonna do an alternating because I don't think we need the chair for balance. So when you're doing this, we're not collapsing to the side, we're reaching up and over, up and center, up and over, up and center. So really think about height and lengthening through your spine and the top of the head. We're keeping our elbows soft. Good, and again, just go at your own pace that's comfortable. You want to feel the stretch. You want to have a dynamic, sort of slow flow to this movement. Can everyone hear me okay? Thank you. I saw the thumbs up. Good. One more time on each side. Good. Then we're going to bring our arms to the front and go into a little plie. And again, I don't think that we need the chair for balance, but if you do, I mean, there's never any shame in grabbing that chair, because if you are falling over, you won't be able to do the movement properly. So this mini plie is a slight bending of the knees. Toes and knees are going out to the corners of the room. And you're not bending so much that your heels lift off the floor or that your knees shoot past your toes. Now I'm just keeping my shoulders engaged, but I'm not elevating my shoulders. And if your arms get fatigued, you just place your arms down here. So just warming up here, building some heat in our body, slowly getting that heart rate up. I mean, it's not going to climb up like a boot camp, but it is going to elevate compared to when you're sitting. Now we're going to go up onto the toes. And at this point, if you want to hold on to that chair, please do. Your heels are going to come apart when you go onto your toes, and then your heels will come back together. I didn't really talk about this since most people don't wear shoes, but if you are wearing shoes, I would encourage you to be out of them because you can't really engage all the foot muscles if you're in shoes. In terms of socks, that is sort of a comfort level. I find that I'll slip a little bit if I'm wearing socks, so a little more friction if I'm barefoot. Now, let's try having the arms overhead. Let's change up the balance a little bit. Warming up those calves. Let's do 4 more. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, you can relax those arms. We're going to take our feet into second position. Second position is heels are a little wider, maybe about shoulder distance. We're still turned out. We're going to go back to that plie. Feel free to keep your arms relaxed if your shoulders need a break. If not, we can have our arms to the side here. Same thing as before, you don't want to overshoot past those toes with those knees. And you want to keep your chest as vertical as possible. So I'm trying to think of a theme for each class. I mean, sometimes it's related to pulses. One time I did a kickboxing theme. Today's theme is going to be about tilts. Not the pelvic tilt though, which you may have heard of, but really about the torso. So right now we're in vertical spine. So if I show you from the side, I'm not doing this, which is more traditional squat, but we are actually going to intentionally tilt our spine. And what that means is it's a hinging at the hips and the waist. It is not a rounding of the spine. All right, so we're in second position. Let's go ahead and lift those arms and come onto our toes. This feels a little different when your feet are apart. And in this position, we're actually going to go down into the squat and then up on the toes. So let's add the arm movement to it. Plie, heel raise. Take your time. So we're moving our arms, we're elevating our arms, but we are not elevating our shoulders. So this is shoulder elevation. It's independent of what your arms are doing. Sometimes it feels like when we raise our arms, we also want to elevate our shoulders, but you should be able to feel a difference. Let's do a couple more. Good, and then one more. All right, so we're gonna get started the workout here. We're gonna need our chair for our arabesque. Our arabesque, by definition, is lifting one leg straight behind, not turning out, trying to keep the toes and knees facing the floor. And you are gonna wanna be a little bit of a distance from your chair because when you lean forward, you don't wanna lean over. So I'm just lifting my front leg, which if I were to turn to you would be my outside leg. But we're actually facing the chair, so it doesn't matter which leg you use. We're going to eventually use both of them. Now with the arabesque, as you lift that leg back, squeezing the butts, you point the toes. If your foot cramps, just flex your foot. But you want to squeeze the quadriceps so your leg's very straight, your glutes are engaged, but also your abs are engaged. That way you protect your lower back. I'm not lifting my leg and arching my back. I'm actually trying to keep a neutral spine as much as I can, which means as I lift my leg, my torso is tilting in a neutral position, not in a rounded position. Now standing leg is going to be slightly bent. So if it was locked out, go ahead and slightly bend it. All right, so we have the basic movement set up. This is your arabesque. Now, your eye gaze shouldn't be straight ahead because that means as you're tilting, you're like looking up. So your eye gaze will kind of be down on the floor, slightly ahead of your chair. So now that we have this set up, your standing leg is probably going to fatigue a little bit too. We're going to stay in the arabesque. So right here, hold here. And then here's the challenge. I want you to reach your arms forward and then return. Now you can also do it one arm at a time if you like. And then you want to brace your abs. And if you feel it's a little too high, then just lower the arabesque. But you want to be able to stretch and return. So really squeeze your abs, find that balance for a second, and then bring your hands back to that stable position, holding on to the chair. Good. You're going to feel your shoulder blade muscle area, so those rear deltoids as you reach up, just because you're facing down. So see if you can get your biceps right by your ears. As opposed to reaching down here, we're reaching that same line as our leg and spine. Let's do 2 more. And now you can go ahead and keep your hand on your chair. We're going to pulse it for 16. 1, 2. Keep that hip turned down for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. You don't need to move your chair if you don't want to, because remember we're just going straight back. So I'm not going to move my chair just so you can maybe see a different angle, which is my back leg moving. First, we're going to set up that arabesque. So if I was turning out here, you'd see more of my butt. You don't want to see most of my butt. I'm trying to keep my hips squared. To get this full range of motion. So how far you tilt over for your arabesque will depend on your hamstring flexibility, which is why bending that standing leg is helpful. It allows you a little more range of motion. Keep your abs nice and braced so you are always in a neutral spine, not in an arched spine. And definitely try not to do a rounded spine. Good. I'm just kind of leaning onto that chair. I try to always not grip my chair, but just have a few fingertips on it. Good. Keep going. So set up that full range. Good. Okay, so looking great. So always work within your range of motion, right? You know what's challenging for you and also doable. All right, so let's go ahead and hold that up. So this is called an isometric contraction. It's when you're holding and squeezing a bunch of muscles, but you're not moving. So I'm holding still. Make sure that standing leg is bent. And then you can either do a single arm reach or both. Now keep in mind, your vision really affects your balance. So if you're reaching with both arms and you're looking around the room at the same time, you might fall. So I want you to stare at that point, maybe a couple feet ahead of your chair. You don't need to look at me, you know what you're doing. And staring at that dot will help you with balance. So go at your own pace, slow is fine. One of the reasons I don't really count is because we're all kind of going at our own paces anyways. But you want to reach kind of that same fatigue level on this side than you did on the other side. Let's do about 4 more reaches. Keep that standing leg slightly bent. And last 2. That lifted leg, keep squeezing those quadriceps. Get those legs nice and straight. Good. And then last one, right? So now we're going to pulse. And for the pulses, we're going to do 16. And I would keep the hand on the chair, but I guess you can do this. You can reach those arms. We got about 8 more. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So yeah, the chair is always there if you need it. If you want to have extra balance challenges, you don't need to have the chair. Okay. So we're going to lift the outside leg. Let me show you from the side view. If you've ever done like a single leg deadlift, so we're just standing, whatever leg you're just standing on, switch sides, please. So we want to go back to the first leg. So in my case, this is my outside leg. This is the movement I'm going to be doing. So if you've ever done a single leg deadlift, basically you tilt and you stand up, which is kind of an arabesque, right? But we're actually going to do it with our knees bent now. So take that outside leg. I'm going to face forward. You can also face this way, it's fine. I'm just showing you right now. So I have a slightly turned out foot, and I'm going to imagine I'm doing a single leg deadlift. Slightly bend that knee. And by letting the leg go back and turned out. So see, my knees are facing you guys, or facing that way. So we have this turnout. I'm really not straightening or bending my knee at this point. I'm just kind of locking that hip in place. All right. Do you want to try that without holding onto the chair? So one of the reasons why you can also do it facing the direction I am with just one hand having access to the chair is that you can take your hand off the chair, you can let it hover above the chair. Sometimes when you're like leaning right onto the chair, you just want to put your hands there. So it's like the chair is no longer in front of me, but I know where it is. So this is that tilt. The tilt is happening on the standing leg's hip, right? Because that's the thing that's not moving, and everything else is sort of hinging around that point. So now that we've had that set up, see this lifted leg? Connect it to the back of your standing leg. So it could be around your shin. It's not tree pose. You don't need it high up in your groin. And it could be slightly behind the knee. But I want you to keep it there as you hinge. This is going to feel a little different and more challenging because when your torso goes forward, you don't have the counterbalance of your leg going back, right? The weight of your leg going back counterbalances the torso. Now the only thing you have going back is your hips. So this does feel like a single leg deadlift with that turnout. You can decide how far you want to tilt down. Keep that spine straight, your chest lifted. Again, we're not creating that roundness. And you should feel a little nice stretch in your hamstring of the standing leg. There's a tendency to want to pull this knee forward, so try to keep the turnout. And again, use your balance, use your chair, whether you're perpendicular chair or you're facing a chair. You guys feel this? This hurts. What the heck? Yeah, it looks like I'm rounding my spine just by the view, this angle, but I swear I'm not. All right, let's do two more. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, shake those legs out. I'm gonna move my chair to the other side because generally you want the outside leg that has no chance of, hitting the chair to be moving. My chair weighs like 2 pounds, so I just move it. Okay, so let's do the other side. Slightly bend that standing leg, and it's our turned out knee bent arabesque variation, or I guess in the fitness world, it's the single leg deadlift. I did ballet for a year when I was 7. I have many more years of fitness experience than I do ballet experience. But the principles behind the bar are very much fitness oriented. I know you probably don't have like a mirror in front of you, but if you have your video on and you can see yourself in your video, just check that your knees are facing that video and not facing the floor. Yeah. So as long as you can see me, it doesn't really matter. If I can only see half your body, it's not that I don't want to see your beautiful face and smile, but it is helpful for me to see your lower half, at least in this portion of our class. Good. So you guys feel the difference between the turnout versus like when you are square to the front and your knees are face down? Like it challenges different muscle groups in your butt. And this one also happens to open up the hips. Okay, so the next one, the next variation, remember, is we keep that foot connected. So just a few fingertips. You are going to have to stick your butt back. It's not like I'm just tilting forward. Like your tailbone has to go back. If you look at where my butt is and then kind of where it ends up, you have to have that to help counterbalance. If you really want to pretend like you're doing a deadlift, you can like pretend like you're holding a bar. Whew, that was hard. I almost lost my balance. You know why I almost lost my balance? It's because I looked to the screen. So you gotta stare at something and not let your vision waver from that. I think I'm just gonna hold on to my chair. It's very tempting to want to straighten and lock out the standing leg. I know this all the time because I catch myself doing it. It's because it's always easier to settle into our joints than to actually use the muscles to hold us up. So remember to keep that standing leg slightly bent. That way you can really feel those muscles get fatigued. And then here we have our turnouts. And you'll notice there's more abdominal contraction for balance purposes because we don't have, again, the physical aspect of our leg counterbalancing our torso. Let's do two more. All right, good. Shake it out. So now that we've done all this hard stuff, we can do something a little simpler. All right, so you can take your feet the widest it's been, so a little wider than our second position, and we're still turned out. This is our wide squat, our widest plie, and you'll notice that, oh, I don't have the AC on, I'm sweating like crazy. So you'll notice that my knees pretty much won't shoot past my ankles. You want that to be the case. If you have your knees potentially shooting past your toes, it means your feet aren't wide enough. So my torso is vertical right now. I'm not tilting forward at all. And in this position, my abs don't really have to do that much work. I mean, I'm bracing it, but because I'm vertical, don't really have to do much work. Now I'm going to plie down or squat down, and then I'm going to hinge. And you should feel your abs a little bit more. Back to vertical and stand. I'm going to show you the side view. So vertical, tilt, vertical, and stand. It changes what your legs feel. It should change what your abs feel because the easiest way is to do this, right? To drop the chest. But we require abdominal strength when we have that tilt. Now, if you do want a little more challenge, you can have your arms up. This might be known to you as good morning, but having the weight of your arms up here does make it more challenging. Don't yank your head forward. You're actually using it to keep your chest open, and I'm keeping my elbows pretty much reaching back the whole time. Even as I'm tilting forward, I'm pulling my elbows back, keeping my chest open. And some of you might even find this more helpful, that as you tilt, it helps to keep that good posture. It reminds you to keep the good posture because your elbows are constantly opening up. So posture very much involves our shoulder blade area squeezing together. Our shoulder blades squeezing together. Right? Because when our shoulder blades separate, that's when we are dropping. All right, I'm going to add a couple more elements to this. It's heel lifts. But no, we are not going to lift both heels at the same time. So let's just try this out. Whether your hands are still up here or not, it's up to you. But we're going to go down, lift the heel, hinge, lift, stand, and drop that heel. So it's not a huge heel lift because we're in the widest position. You can heel lift more when you bend down, tilt, lift, stand, heel drop, heel lift, squat with both knees are bending, yep. Hinge forward, lift, Good. Remember, it's a hinge at the hips versus at any part of our vertebrae. Take your time. I'm like really having to think about this. Pull those elbows back. Torso lift, stand, heel drop. Let's do one more on each side. Nice and slow. Thinking about each movement, we're bending. Now we're hinging. Still squeezing those shoulder blades towards each other. Lifting back to vertical, stand, and then the final side. Good. So that's going to conclude our leg portion, but we're actually going to continue doing some more legs with the arms portion. Grab a quick drink if you like. I'm just going to get rid of the chair. By get rid of it, I mean I just moved it off screen. It's my messy house here. My messy house that is all hidden on the side. Now I have these cans of beans. They're about £1 pound. I don't have dumbbells. If you have dumbbells, use them. 1 to 3 pounds is what I recommend. If you don't have dumbbells, don't worry about it. Okay. We're gonna get into a normal squats. So not really turned out, slightly turned out. Your feet are about about shoulder distance. This is the kind of fitness squat you would normally see in a standard weight training class. We're gonna start with shoulders. And now we're doing a lot of shoulders here. Elbows 90 degrees to start. Good. And if you're not holding anything, you can just make loose fists. I wouldn't make squeezing tight fists. Squat back, press up. Squat, press. I'm basically waiting until I'm standing. Soft knees at the top, soft elbows at the top. So it's like I'm doing 2 movements back to back. First the squat, then the shoulders. Squat, shoulders. Let me just show you the side view. There is a tilt in the fitness squat. There is the tilt. Your butt goes back. Your chest stays up, but your whole spine tilts slightly forward. Which is why it makes it a little challenging to have these arms up at 90 degrees while you do this. When I push those weights up, I'm not pushing it behind my head. It's like in the plane of just in front of my face here. Okay? Good, now I'm going to challenge you to do the reverse of this, which is simultaneous press and squat. This is going to feel challenging, but it's sort of similar to what we did earlier where we're going into the squat and our arms are over our head. You're going to feel a lot more shoulder work. Kind of like when we were in that arabesque and then we elevated the arms. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. You might not be able to squat as low, that's okay. You might not be able to reach as vertically and as high, that's okay too. You should feel those shoulder muscles and also those muscles in the upper back, rear deltoid area. Okay, so this combination where we press and squat at the same time is definitely a little more challenging. Let's do 2 more. And last one. Good, give your, if you need to give your legs a break, then just stand and do the lifts, okay? Like, everything I'm doing is optional, right? Nothing is being forced upon you here. You chose to join this workout. So here is our lunge. I'm just showing you the side view. You can face front. Nice long stride. Back knee bends down to roughly 90 degrees, ankle height. Lunge and side raise. Lunge and side raise. You're gonna face forward here. Your feet are hip distance apart. So you're not on a tightrope when you do lunges. Elbows are slightly bent. Lower and lift. Everything lowers at the same time. Everything lifts at the same time. Let's try about 4 more. And then I'm gonna up the intensity of this We're gonna stay low in our lunge. That means our muscles are staying loaded. All right, so stay down here. And while you're staying in that isometric contraction in your lunge, lift the arms and pulse. 16. Raise your abs, chest up. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Switch legs. I know your legs are tired. Our legs continue to work, but we have the other leg in front, so it'll feel a little bit different. You can do the exact same thing we just did, or you can try this variation, which is lift as you lower. So previously we went down together and we went up together. So you're doing the same motion, just kind of a different pairing. Arms lift as you drop into the lunge. So this is symmetrical. We're lunging on the other leg. We're still doing shoulder raises, but the coordination and movement pattern is different. Just kind of challenges your brain a little bit. So again, I'm dropping down as I lift my arms, but it really doesn't matter which version you do. Soft, bend in those elbows. Let's do 4 more. Again, you want a nice, long enough stride in those lunges so your knees are forming 90 degrees. All right, you guys ready to go down and stay down? Good, so when you go down, your arms are already up anyway, so pulse. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 8. 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. We're gonna do our rotators. My elbows stay at 90 degrees. Lift, open, squeeze, and return. It's a 6-part movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? No legs here. This is challenging enough coordination-wise. You really want to be precise as you can be. So when I lift my arms and elbows and my dumbbells or my fists to shoulder height, it's everything. It's not just my elbows. See how my weights are lower than my elbows? And then we're up here, this is 90. When we do this, we're not just squeezing the dumbbells in, we're not just squeezing the elbows in, everything's coming in parallel. And then here's the most challenging part. Most people do this and then down here. So really from here to here, it's your elbows don't move. It's just a rotation and then it drops. Make sense? All right, let's do like 2 more rounds. I don't know what phase anyone's in. We're just gonna do 2 more full rounds of 6 movements. Okay, so elbows stay at shoulder height for most of it. Good. Flip. Curls. These are basic curls. I'm just happening to direct it sort of to the corners of the room. You can also curl directly in front of you. No matter what curl angle you decide, the elbows are right under the shoulders and they stay there. So from the side, you don't see my elbows swinging forward. You don't see my elbows bending back. You stay in space. This is your full range from your thighs to your shoulder heights. Chest up, soft knees. Now find sort of a mid-range. So maybe about if you divided your full range into thirds, we're in the middle third. We're not going all the way down, we're not going all the way up. So look at your elbow angles. See, I can create the same sort of dumbbell movement pattern by swinging my whole arm. But that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my elbow angle, keeping those elbows still. Okay, biceps are one of our stronger muscles, so we might not feel this. Depends on how much weight you have. but almost everyone's biceps are a lot stronger than their triceps, which is what we'll get to next. But before we do that, we're gonna bring some shoulders back into it. So out and pull. When you pull those elbows in, pull your elbows in and squeeze your rib cage, like as much as you can. Like someone gave you a lot of money and the only way you can hold on to it is with your armpits. So you squeeze all that money. Good. Couple more. Now hold your arm out, elbows roughly at shoulder height. This is a shoulder endurance exercise where we're getting our biceps involved. It's like you want to punch yourself in the head, but don't actually do it. Now I'm going to bring my arms forward. And I'm going to pretend I'm about to punch myself in the forehead. Your shoulders are probably going to be the one that's fatiguing. It's just because we're holding our elbows up at shoulder height. But we are still working those biceps because the elbows are bending. All right, we're going to hit some back muscles. The back is all about pulling. So imagine there's someone looking over your back. So we want to get into our tilted position, braced abs. And there's someone looking over your shoulder and you're like, get away from me. You elbow them. Now this is the wide. And then this is the standard row where your palms face in and you pull those elbows straight back. So you can do whatever's comfortable for you. I'm actually going to do both. I'm just starting with the wide because it's a little more fatiguing. And when your muscles are fresh, it's easier to do. Every time you lift those elbows, you're squeezing your shoulder blades towards each other. And we're always going to keep that spine tilted at 45 degrees, nice straight line. Let's do a pulse. Hold those elbows up. Constantly elbow that person. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the way to 16. 8, 7, 6. It's like you're opening up your chest the whole time. Good. Palms in. Standard row. Anytime your arms are closer to the body, closer to the midline of the body, the easier the exercise. So this should feel a little easier than the wide row we just did. It's like back and up. So our knees are bent, so you're probably feeling a little fatigue in those legs. Let's go ahead and pulse it. Pull it up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're going to go to our hands and knees, and you're just going to need one of your dumbbells, but believe me, you don't really need it. Like when you're doing triceps, just having the arms here, it's a lot. So I have my wrists underneath my shoulder, knees underneath my hips, and if you're going to use this dumbbell, pull those elbows. Try not to turn. Chest square to the floor, eye gaze on the floor. Bend the elbows to 90, now straighten the arm completely. Bend to 90, straighten. Every time you straighten, you're trying to actually lock the elbow out. The only reason I say that here is because very rarely do people do that because it's tiring, hitting those triceps. Give me 4 more, and then we're gonna pulse it at the end range. So about the straight. Get your arms mostly straight, and then pulse it right here. See how small that range of motion is? Pulsing is just small range of motion, usually a little faster. You're bending your elbow just a little bit so you can straighten it again. Notice it's not about the wrist. It is absolutely not about the wrist. Keep the wrist straight. It's a slight bend in the elbow and straighten it again. For 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. So you just saw it on this side. My elbows didn't move. Notice it wasn't swinging like this. The only reason I'm not turning around is because I just want to show you a point. Like, look, you can see my elbows. You can't see it. So if I have it set where you can just barely see my elbows, then you should be able to just barely see my elbows this whole time. So if you notice my elbows disappearing, that means I've dropped my elbows. It means I'm not getting as much of work out of the triceps because I'm letting my upper arm move. The key thing to working and isolating those triceps is you set your elbow at a certain height and you keep it there. Try to keep my back nice and flat. Eye gaze will be on the floor. You don't need to keep your head turned on me. Just align your head and neck so you're staring at the floor next to your thumb. Let's do 4 more here, fully straightening. And then it's that pulse. So the pulse is challenging. I'm really trying my best to keep my elbows visible. Here we go. Pulse. Give me 8, 7, 6, 3, 2, and 1. All right. I know your triceps are tired, but we're gonna do push-ups. You can do push-ups with your hands wide. You can do it on your knees like this, trying to bend those elbows to 90 degrees. If you wanna do it on, so these are kneeling, and then if you wanna do it on your knees, you can walk your hands forward, shift your body forward, so your butt kind of disappears. You can do it on your toes. We're gonna do 8 push-ups. You can count it to yourself. You can do more if you'd like, at your own pace. Here we go. Inhale down, exhale up. Keep breathing. Give me 4 more. Okay. We are done with those arms. Usually I do about 5 minutes of abs. No, I'm running a little late, as usual. Okay, here's your basic crunch. Right into it. If you have any strain in the lower back, any neck pain, hands will be behind the head to support it. Feet will be on the ground. Imprinted spine to support your lower back. I'm gonna be lifting my legs and doing a few other variations of exercises. But if that bothers your lower back in any way, try to come back to this. I'm going to lift one leg. I'm going to continue crunching. My crunch is just that I lift my head, neck, and shoulder blades off the ground. Just until you feel your shoulder blades clear the ground, that's enough. Good. Straighten the leg. Work the quads. Feel the hamstring stretch. Doing belly. And then on the diagonal. Align the knees. Good. Other leg. First tabletop. I know, you're having getting tired, right? So crunches can be very effective if you're doing it at a nice slow tempo. And no momentum. A lot of times we're like doing this really fast and we don't feel anything. Leg straight. I'm doing about 4 or 5 or 6 with each leg movement. Try not to yank on the head here. We're just supporting the neck. And then leg on the diagonal. Take a quick break, flip over. Do a little spine work. We're going to come back to that. Lifting right arm, left leg, left arm, right leg. Just alternate. Lift that chest. There's a little arching in the back, but this is just to undo all that crunching we just did. If you break down what a crunch move is, it's basically sort of rounding the spine. But since we're horizontal, we're rounding the spine up against gravity, so that's why those work. If you want to do a couple with both arms and legs lifted, you can. All right, flip over again. So we're gonna just finish with this exercise, which is just a nice stretch. So hands across the opposite knee. Stretch, but your abs gotta stay tight. Reach those opposite hands and fingers away from each other. If this feels too much, you can always elevate a little more. So the higher the angle of the limbs, the less stress on that imprint. So this is the most. All right, let's stay here for 8. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and switch. If you want to keep the range of motion really small down here, you can. Nice and slow, small range, a little more challenging. Last 2. And then just reach and completely stretch, completely relax. Arch your back off the mats, right? You're completely arched. Your rib cage is popped up. That's how you stretch. So in my bar class, I do more legs and arms because I do teach Pilates, so I don't want to do too much Pilates and bar without having a lot of that overlap stuff. I am now stretching my lower back, upper back, hamstrings. I'm pretty tight. Yeah, we did a lot of squats in the beginning. So we are going to stretch our quads, but let's get into our calves. If you can't reach your toes, that's okay. You just have to pull your toes back until your heels are off the ground. If you can reach your toes, you just pull them back. Sometimes it's helpful to do one at a time. So if you're doing one at a time, go ahead and switch. And then I want you to position yourself to stretch your quads. It'll be the top leg. And while you're doing this, you kind of want to push the hip forward, as opposed to having your hip back like this. If you push your hip forward, you'll get a hip flexor stretch as well. And all this, you're pulling that heel straight to that butt. As close to the butt as you can get it. You can face the back. You can just go right to the other side. I'm just turning around so I can face you guys. All right, do a little straddle, just open up those hips. This is very personal. It's not about doing the straddle splits. It's going as far as you can until you feel that those hips, inner thighs, groin area being stretched. Now, if you can, try to do a tricep stretch too. And if you can, lean away from the tricep. It's into your side bend. It's a lot. We're trying to stretch. We're trying to multitask. All right, so last stretch. If you don't want to stay in the straddle, you can cross your legs. It's up to you. I'm just going to do this other side. Go ahead and just loosen up those shoulders. This is a great stretch to do in the middle of your day. It's dynamic, it's movement based. If you've been sitting in your chair for a while and you're feeling kind of stiff, you want movement. You don't want to just like go from a stiff position to a hold position. So this is always great to do. Get your arms over your head, opens up your chest as you reach back. Also going forward. So yeah, if you don't always have the opportunity to have a midday break doing a bar class, you can bring bar to your office by just doing some stretches and movement at your desk. Thank you all for joining me.